Hi everyone. Today I will talk about the book of the City of Ladies with my group friend Yunus Egemen Yüksel. And firstly, I want to talk about the background information about Kristen de Pizan, the author of the book. Kristen de Pizan born 1364 and died in 1430, was a poet and author at the court of King Charles and several French dukes. Uh, Venetian by birth, and Kristen served as a court writer in France after the death of her husband. Kristen patrons included dukes and some kings, and also John the Fearless. Her best-known works include the Book of the City of Ladies, and today I will talk about it, and The Treasure of the City of Ladies. Both written when she worked for John the Fearless of Burgundy. Uh, Today, her books of advice, that time her books of advice to princesses, princes and knights remained in print until the 16th century. And in these pictures, you see Kristen de Pizan giving a lecture actually to her male students. And this is the face zoomed in of Kristen de Pizan. And after that, I want to give some background information about the book. In her study, taking a break from her work, Kristen de Pizan picks up a slim volume someone has given her, and then shocked by the main author's harsh and extreme portrayal of the immoral and inconstant nature of women. Also, you know the attitude of Aristotle and Plato toward women, and also Augustine. And Kristen is saddened by the state of affairs. A flash of light startles her, and three women figures representing reason, rectitude, and justice appear to her. And they tell her she's built the city of ladies and populate with the noblest and most accomplished women the world has known. And the city, Kristen Buell, is to serve as a safeguard against the cruel accusations of men, as well as a reminder of the true and laudable nature of woman. One of these work's central concerns is countering the destructive and also false testimony that male authors have supplied in their written works for centuries, and also maybe today. And Kristen attempts to strip away the layers of distortion and misrepresentation to present an accurate portrait of the true and essential nature of woman. Christian's approach through her line of questioning gives voice to the various opinions and untruths men. And Kristen directly addresses the issue when Lady Reason argues that, contrary to popular belief, man wasn't made in God's image as in an exact physical likeness. Instead, reason contends that all people, man and woman, share in this replication of God's essential nature, she says. Um, and there is a spiritual likeness and similarity between God and this desire to penetrate the essential internal nature of the good found in people by transcending the physical, and is yet another of Christian central themes. And I will I will talk about the chapters that I read. And firstly, it's book part 1, chapter 4, page 12. And in this part, Kristen was destined to build the city of ladies. She was talking to Lady, and before Lady revealed her name, she explained the task that Kristen had. Before the task, she mentioned older cities of women, like Rim of Amazonia. I think you heard of Amazonia. Amazonia was maintained under the rule of various queens, and all of them were noble ladies, chosen by the women themselves. And these women were strong and feared by everyone, even the Greeks. And in that time, Greeks were the strongest, they say. And the lady continued to tell about the city by saying, the city you are going to build, Kristen, will be much more stronger than this. You will use indestructible cement and great walls that you must raise all around. These walls should have huge towers and surrounded by moats. This is what a powerful city should have in order to resist attack, lady says, and then continues by saying you will make them secure as possible and city will be safe from assault. After lady talks about the task that Kristen had, revealed her name, which is Lady Reason. And in this book part 1, chapter 5, page 13-14. And Kristen tells how the second lady gave her name, and second lady starts to talk about her name and her task. She says, my name is Rectitude, and I live in heaven more than earth. I bring the message of God to you, which is encouraging you to do things. I preserve the truth, protect the rights of the poor and innocent. I prevent stealing from the other, and I am a defender of who serve to God. I make sure who are good and who are rewarded for that. I hold a rule, it's like a stick, in my right hand, like a scepter, like a wand, and this distinguishes between good and evil. The rule. Follows my yardstick, the rule, cannot go to astray, cannot deviate from me, cannot deviate from heaven. She says, my road is the road of peace. You see my rule. With this rule, all things are measured out, measuring what is good and what is evil. And this city will include this rule, and this rule will help you to plan the city of ladies which you are going to build, she says, and I have come to help you. And she continues, this city will include marketplaces and squares, roads, palaces, and houses. With the help of us, the three ladies, Rectitude, Reason, and the other lady, no space will be unfilled, she says. And then book part 1 again, chapter 6, page 14 and 15. Kristen now tells about the name of third lady and her outlined role. After that, Kristen explains she will have to finish off the high turrets. Third lady says, I am Justice. So third lady's name is Justice, and she says, I am the most beloved of God's daughter. Because she says, because my existence arises from directly from God. I live in heaven, on earth, on hell. in heaven, I am the glory of saints and the blessed spirits on earth, and I divide up what is good and what is evil. My task is purely and simply to judge and repay everyone according to their just deserts. And she says, I keep things in order because I am a part of God and God is part of me. And whoever follows me cannot go wrong, like Lady Rector says. Um, and she also holds something in her right hand, and she says, I am holding a vessel, gold vessel, old pure gold, and it is like a measuring cup. It measures what people deserve. Also, mortal men have their own measuring cups, but their judgment is never accurate as mine. Like people cannot have the same judgment like God have or Lady Justice have, and because men give out too much or too little sometimes, and Justice says, I am the most important in all three virtue, and our actions, three ladies' actions, complete each other. And she says at the end of the chapter, before I give you the key of the finished city, I will need your help to fortify it and make it safe. She says to Kristin. I am continuing. I continue and book parts 1, chapter 27, page 57. Kristen asks Lady reason that God has ever blessed a woman's mind with knowledge of the highest branches of learning, because in that times men were the superior, and um, you know what male authors write. And after that, Lady Reason says, Lady Reason wants to give some example and says, I will give you some example to you to make you understand the truth. And she says, if there exists a custom that send little girls to school like boys and teach them all sorts of different subjects, they will also grasp and learn the difficulties of all the arts and sciences just like boys do. It's a very modern approach, and you can understand the example today easily. Although women, he says after that, women have weaker and agile bodies, and which prevents women to do certain tasks compared to men. But their minds are sharper and more receptive than we know, she says. After that, Kristen asks to expand the topic more, and Lady Reason says, Lady Reason asks, do you know why is that women know less than men? And Lady Reason asks Kristen and answers her own question after that. She says it is because they are less exposed to wide variety of experiences. And so Kristen asks again, why don't they know more? And Lady answers, it is not necessary for the public good for women to go around and do what men do. It is adequate that they perform the tasks for which they are fitted. I think it's a controversial idea because I think women can do everything in the modern world. In book part 1, chapter 43, Kristen asks if women are naturally endowed with good judgment, and Lady Reason answers the question by saying faculty, like endowed with good judgment faculty that you are talking about is inherent in both and women. But some people are more endowed with this virtue with which is judgment. Good judgment doesn't come from learning, but it helps to develop a good judgment virtue. Being endowed and learning completes themselves. And if a person with endowed, for example, dies, her or his virtue dies with him. But a person with knowledge dies, his knowledge can pass to other people by books, by verbally. The fact is, these deeds are transient and vanish with time, whereas learning is indestructible. And she says to Christian, your first question about women, which is, are they naturally endowed or not? Lady says they are naturally endowed. I can say a firm yes to this. Most women prove that they are attentive, diligent, and meticulous in a household. Sometimes women having lazy husbands annoy them by giving the impression that they are nagging them, but most wives do that on good intentions, not bad intentions. If they don't have good judgment, this is because of their lazy husbands, Lady Reason says. And in book part 2, chapter 30, this time Kristen asks about the institution of marriage to one of the ladies. This lady is Lady Rectitude. In those times, men and books say marriage is unbearable because women are so impossible to live with. Kristen mentions a letter, which is letter of Valerius to ruffians, and in that book, Theophrastus says no wise man would take a wife because women cause trouble, lack affection, and gossip. He says. And also he says if a man falls ill, if a man gets sick, it costs less to have a servant, because when my falls ill, gets sick, men have to not to leave her side, he says. Then Lady Rectitude replies this question by saying, these opinions can differ based on the individual, of course, and a British husband make a wife feel bad and suffer his wife, and then she says to Kristen, how many fine and decent women have been beaten for no good reason, heaped with insults and curses, and subjected to all manner of burdens without questioning their tasks, she says. And also the husbands are either out visiting places of depravity. Depravity means against the morality of living it up in town or taverns, like bars, pubs. And husband is the master of woman, and woman has to behave in this way. But however, there also exist marriages, like couples who love each other so much. Then there are bad husbands, but there are also decent, honorable, and wise husbands. Woman who has good fortune to marry them will be given so much happiness in this world. Bad women are minority, and blaming all women in the world is very wrong, Lady Rectitude says. And my chapters are done here, and I give the then Yunus Egemen Yüksel will continue from here. Thank you for listening me. Goodbye.
Hi everyone, my name is Yunus Egemen Yüksel. I'll talk about some chapters of Book 2 and Book 3. The chapters of Book 2 are chapter 36, 62, and 64. Chapter 36 is about against those who claim that it is not good for women to be educated. Chapter 62 is Christine addresses rectitude, who, in her reply, refutes the view of those who claim that women use their charms to attract men. In chapter 64, rectitude explains that some women are loved more for their virtue than others are for their attractiveness. The chapters of Book 3 are chapter 1 and chapter 19. The first chapter recounts how justice brought the Queen of Heaven to live in the city of ladies. The 19th chapter is the last chapter of the third book, and it is about Christian addresses all women. Chapter 36 is about against those who claim that it is not good for women to be educated. So, Christine says some women may have done bad things, but all the other women have done good things. The good things absolutely more than the bad things done by women. This is especially true for those who are well educated in the wisdom and arts or science. This is why I am more amazed at the views of some men who tell their daughters, wives, or other female relatives that they are totally against education, because they fear that their morality will be damaged. So actually, what Christine is surprised at is that although educated women do much less of these bad things, still some people think that education will lead women to do bad things. Lady Rectitude agreed with her and said in response that this proves that these men's arguments are by no means. It's absolutely not rational. And she asked, how can getting an education that teaches virtue affect women badly? Lady Rectitude continued with examples. Quintus Hortensius, a great rhetorician and one of Rome's new orators, had a daughter named Hortensia. He was proud of her intelligence. Hortensia was similar to his father in many ways, and even surpassed his father with her great oratory skills. Hortensia decided to take on the woman's cause, thus fulfilling a task that no man dared to do. As Rome was experiencing great financial difficulties, it was suggested that certain weights be imposed on women, and especially tax on their valuables. This Hortensia spoke so convincingly that she listened attentively as if her father was speaking and won her case. The other example of lady rectitude is Giovanni Andrea, a famous lawyer who taught in Bologna. Likewise, opposed the notion that women shouldn't be educated. He gave his daughter Novella such a good education about law that when he was busy with other duties, he could send his daughter to classes instead of himself. So, not all men think that women shouldn't be educated. Even smart and successful men would never agree this idea. Rectitude said, your own father, a great astrologer and philosopher, didn't agree this idea. But your mother thought that as a woman, you should spend your time spinning like the other girls. Despite your mother, you have managed to gather some information thanks to your tendency to learn. As the proverb says, what is in our nature cannot be taken away. Then, Christine undoubtedly agreed with that. So, it wasn't just men who didn't want women to be educated, and people held this view were ignorant people, regardless of whether they were men or women, because educated people can think rationally and know very well that a woman cannot be harmed by education. In chapter 62, Christine addresses rectitude, who, in reply, refused the view of those who claim that women use their charms to attract men. According to Christine, women who do this only suffer great harm. Still, women who want to look beautiful by dressing elegantly get a lot of criticism because they are told to do so just to get men's attention, Christine said. According to Rectitude, wearing clothes that don't fit someone's position in life is particularly condemned. However, although I have no intention of condemning such immorality, I do not want anyone to think that they have the absolute right to blame those who make themselves beautiful in this way. Absolutely, not all women do this seduce men. Even not only women but also men do this. However, it's wrong for any mortal creature to judge another person. God alone has the right to judge us. So, it's very wrong to dress in that style, but not all women who do this are want to seduce men. Moreover, not only women but also men do this. But above all, only God can judge a person, not another man, says Lady Rectitude. In chapter 64, Rectitude explains that some women are loved more for their virtue than others are for their attractiveness. According to Lady Rectitude, men who value honesty are more easily attracted to virtuous and honest women and love them more profoundly, even if they are less attractive. Rectitude defends this idea by giving an example. This is what happened to Lucretia. It wasn't just her beauty that Tarquin fell in love with her, but her exemplary virtue. One night, her husband was at dinner with other knights, one of which was Tarquin, who later raped her. Each of them started to talking about his wife, all claiming to be the most virtuous of them. To find out whose wife was worthy of this award, they set out to call each of their houses in turn. Spouses they found engaged in an honest job or something else held the highest reputation. Lucretia was considered the most commendable of all women. Lucretia wore a plain dress while she was busy working and talking on moral matters with other ladies in her home. Accompanying Lucretia's husband, the king's son Tarquin, was so impressed by her honesty, simple and condemnable behavior, and humble demeanor that he devised a burning desire for her and began to implement his evil plan. So, according to Rectitude, virtue of woman affects a virtuous man rather than a woman's beauty. However, no matter how much Rectitude thinks that the virtuous woman will attract the virtuous man, in her example, Tarquin is impressed by Lucretia's virtue and rapes her. So, we can say that virtuous women do not only attract virtuous men, because a person who rapes can never be called virtuous. The second book was that. In the third book, I'll start from the first chapter. The first chapter and the last chapter I'll tell you. The first chapter recounts how Justice brought the Queen of Heaven to live in the City of Ladies. Lady Justice came to Christine and said, "You have done an excellent job and completed the building of the City of the Ladies. Now, as I promised you, I'll bring you the most noble queen to live here with her friendship. She'll rule the city. No doubt, she'll not refuse to live in the City of Ladies, coupled with her humility that surpasses all other women and her goodness that's even greater than that of angels. My sister will reside in the highest palace that Rectitude has already prepared for her, which is all glory and praise. Now, the entire female race is asking you to agree to live among them." Let them utilize your virtue to the fullest and move away from all sins. Please come to us, Heavenly Queen. My lady, when seeing how great you are, who would even dare to think about the idea that women are inferior? Even if the rest of femininity is evil, you are alone enough to justify them all. All men should not only cease to attack women, but keep them in the highest dignity. Virgin replied, I'll gladly come to live among these women who are justice, my brothers and friends. This is because reason, rectitude, justice, and even nature convinced me to do it. I'll now and always be the head of the female sex. So, Lady Justice tries to persuade the Queen of Heaven to live there in this chapter, because she wants to all women to learn virtue and be inspired by the Queen of Heaven, and the Queen of Heaven accepts to live in the city of the ladies. In the last chapter of the book, Christine addresses all women. Christine says that the construction of our city has finally ended. You can all be placed in its walls in great splendor. Not only women of the past, but also women of the present and future. I'll protect you from your attackers. My dear ladies, I ask you not to abuse this new legacy. Instead, you should follow the example of the noble virgin who is your queen. So, my ladies, this city should rule you morally and encourage you to be merciful and tolerant. You married ladies, do not despair from being so crushed by your husbands, because being free is not the best thing in the world. Women whose husbands are good natured and wise should glorify the Lord. This is one of the greatest blessings every woman in the world can receive. Women whose husbands are neither good nor bad should thank God for being no worse. Women whose husbands are sinful should do their best to endure them. They should try to overcome their husbands' evil and, if possible, direct them to a more reasonable path. As for you, young virgins, be pure and humble, for the wicked set their traps to catch you. Keep your gaze down and be careful in everything you do. Avoid them with virtue against the deceitful ways of the temptations. As for you, widows, be respected in the way you dress and speak. Be devout to your words and deeds. Be patient and humble. In short, all women, you must be on the lookout for those who want to attack your dignity and virtue. My ladies, see how these men attack you. Drive back these liars who use tricks to steal from you. Above all, what you must keep safe is your chastity and your glorious name. You'll not benefit from this. While it looks very attractive, you can be sure that it can only hurt you in the end. Instead, my most honorable ladies, pursue virtue and avoid evil. I, your servant, entrust myself to you. So, Christian addresses all women in this chapter, married, young virgins, and widows in this city. And she asks them to be righteous and imitate the noble virgin. In short, the issues addressed in these chapters are as follows: the opposition to the education of women, the allegations that women use their charms to attract men, some women's virtues take precedence over their attractiveness, the Queen of Heaven is invited to live in the city of ladies, and Christine addresses all women and gives them various advices. It is said that only uneducated and ignorant people oppose women's education because it's extremely meaningless. Because being educated in virtue can never make a person without virtue. It is said that only some women do this, as women allegedly use their charms to attract men. In fact, it is said that not only women but also men do this. However, it is said that it is only God's work to judge this. Still, what's surprising to me is that rectitude doesn't find it right for women to dress well. The next section argues that for some women, being virtuous is more important than being attractive. It is said that virtuous men seek virtue rather than charm in women. In the first chapter of the third book, the Queen of Heaven is asked to live in the City of Ladies because it's thought to be a very correct example to all women living there and teach them virtue. In the last part of the third book, Christine gives various advice to all young, married, and widow women. She tells them how to live in the City of Ladies by imitating the noble Virgin. Thank you for your listening.